3D Printing Today, show number 419. U.S. manufacturing inflection point. Prusa XL announcement. Thingiverse break.
Welcome back to 3D Printing Today, the podcast about all aspects of 3D printing. Hobby, professional, industrial, it does not matter. We cover it all. My name's Andy Cohen, and I'm here at Mr. Whitney Potter.
How you doing, Andy?
I'm doing pretty good. So did you get that article I sent you?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, this article we want to talk about is I guess it's yearly, because we have talked about these guys before.
Yeah.
From a company called Context, they put out a marketing analysis of all the different 3D printing markets.
Right, and this is one of the ones you pay like $8,000 or $10,000 for.
Yeah, it's not cheap because if you go to their website, you can't find it. You have to order it.
Yep.
And so I'm going to assume, and it's a big assumption, that there's some validity to the study. If you're paying that much money, it must be good, right?
You hope there better be some good stuff in there, but this is the information they're releasing to the public.
Yes. Now there were some things that the article that reviews this study, it's coming out of, I think, 3dprint.com. We have our reference in our show notes. And in this article, they say something that kind of surprised me. They basically said that that the sales for 3D printers in the industrial markets were actually down during the height of the pandemic, and they have yet to come back to those pre-pandemic levels.
Right, they're on their way back, but they are still 6% down from pre-COVID levels, although they went up 39% for the first 3 quarters of 2021. So things are recovering, just not there yet.
They're recovering. They're just But I was a bit surprised that we were kind of told that everything was still growing during the shutdown. That was not the truth. Anyway, there's another element in this review of this study that I thought was worth mentioning, and that's they talk about what they call, and it's in quotes, personal and hobby price class of 3D printers. And they say those selling for less than $2,500. And let me quote it. The continuation of the trend of fully assembled personal 3D printers giving way to lower-priced kits, despite demand for both skyrocketing at the height of the COVID-19 lockdowns in 2020. And that makes sense. Everybody's at home. They got nothing to do. Let's 3D print.
Yep.
But what's interesting is that they're predicting, and they're saying that according to what they're seeing, the low-priced kits are beating out ready-to-print 3D printers. I kind of that's kind of intuitive. I would have guessed that myself because the costs are so different. You can buy yourself an Ender 3 for just a little over $200, and it's not that big of a deal to put it together. It's not a full kit; it's just some assembly.
Right.
Required.
So is the $200 Ender 3 is that a what are they calling it? A lower priced kit, or is that a fully assembled 3D printer? I mean, because I would call that a all but fully assembled 3D printer.
I would bet they're lumping all the Chinese flat pack Mendels into the.
So they're calling that a kit.
Yeah.
Even though all you do is stand up the frame and bolt it on.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would bet.
If you break it down that way, then that makes perfect sense.
Because I don't believe, my personal belief, it's my opinion, that the Hevorts, the rat rigs, the rail cores, and the Voron could outsell.
Oh, hell no.
Like the Flash Forges and all the others that are ready to print right out of the box.
No way. Those are all high-end boutique-y,
right.
Enthusiast models.
Right. And besides that, one would question, well, what market are you talking about, since they're sourcing it all themselves and there's no money made on, say, the sale of a Hevort except from those who sell the parts.
Right.
So you really... How would you get that information? How would you draw that out, since there's no company making Hevorts or there is a company making rat rigs, but Vorons? No, that'd be kind of hard to gather that information. So I would bet they're talking mostly about the low cost flat packed Mendels and some of the the small deltas.
Yeah, and if we're describing that as a kit, then I mean, I guess I don't really see that as a kit. To me, if it's a kit, it means that you're, you get a handful of screws, a handful of aluminum extrusion, and a package of electronics where the wires may or may not go back together, right? And
well, anyway, it's an interesting article, and our references in our show notes. What's coming up on the show this week, Whitney?
Let's see. We are starting out talking about the U.S. manufacturing inflection point.
And then we're going to get into the breakage of the Thingiverse yet again.
And then talking about Prusa XL.
Oh, finally. We finally talk about the announcement. Kind of late, but that's okay. So I got to be careful what I talk about in this segment, because I want to talk about something that I've learned and I'm having to deal with in the process of working with an entrepreneur to help him in developing a very lucrative business that does high value manufacturing.
Okay.
And in my discussions with this fellow, who I'm starting to respect, by the way, and this may be really a really cool, fun thing to do.
Cool.
But I can't talk about that. But what I can talk about is some of the things that we're seeing. He's a bit of a marketing expert, and he's looking and reading the tea leaves and seeing things. Now, his business is currently in process. He's currently very profitable. So this isn't coming in at the very beginning. This is coming in at the point where ramping it up and expanding product lines. And in our discussions, the following subject came up, and it's worthy of talking about because this could be an extremely important inflection point when it comes to additive manufacturing. Let's take a look at just one piece or one facet of this picture. Shipping costs. I know everybody out there is hearing the news. The news is screaming about inflation and increased costs and supply chain issues. But let's just look at shipping as one facet of the overall picture, and we'll see something that may mean we're in for a significant change in the way the world works. Shipping costs. I just Google shipping container costs from China, and you'll get a whole bunch of links from companies like Hapag Lloyd and China Freight and Flexport, where you can put in a quote.
Right.
And you'll see posts from the past. This is an old post. There's no date on it, but I know it's old because it's saying that the price to ship a container from China to the United States, that's a 20-foot long container,
right,
to the west coast of the United States, is $1,500.
Okay.
Well, if you're watching the news, you know that information is no longer valid. And digging around a little deeper in this Google search return, I'm seeing from FreightWaves $32,000. Depends on how big and where it's going to. From China to LA, $32,000 from $1,500.
Yeah.
Now, for years, I've always wondered why it was only $1,500. When you think about what it is that you're getting for $1,500, you've got this rather extensive steel box that's now really expensive. Just the box alone. The management of the boxes has become a major issue in and of itself, but that's facet we're not going to talk about yet.
Okay.
But I've always wondered, why is it only $1,500? You're putting it on a ship.
Right.
All these people are moving this thing around with big, expensive trucks on a big, expensive trip going around the world to the other side of the world and back. $1,500 one way. I've always felt that was artificially low.
Well, but how many containers are you getting on a ship? And what are the operating expenses of the ship? I mean, they were making money at that. They were not.
That's not what I heard. There's a podcast.
These are businesses. Why were they engaged in business if they were losing money?
They were barely making any money. All these shipping companies were right on the edge, all of them. Okay. They've always been that way.
Right, there's a low margin, but they're still making money. I mean, if they're not making money, they would not be in that business.
But they're just barely making money. It was artificially propped up, probably because of an extremely wide bandwidth. They're moving so many of these shipping containers that they were making the ships bigger and bigger and bigger.
Sure.
And they're making the ships so big they had to widen the canals to get them through.
Yep.
I mean, these ships are monstrosities and they're packed really high. So you get this massive throughput, gobs of these giant steel boxes coming through.
Yep.
That means per box, at the box level, the container level, the margin's razor thin.
Sure.
Okay, well, now it's $32,000 for the container. Why? Well, it's the old adage of economics, supply and demand. The supply is hard to make it available to you, so that bandwidth is slowly getting crunched down into a bottleneck. And if you look at the ocean front of LA Harbor and Long Beach Harbor, you're going to see tons of these ships sitting out there waiting for their turn to get into the port to dump their boxes.
Right.
Now, there's other issues. Now we're hearing it's truck drivers, the trucks don't have trucks.
Yep.
We're hearing the scheduling, the demand, the burst of demand. But the bottom line, no matter how you paint this, no matter what you look at, no matter what facet of it you look at, the bottom line is the entire system was artificially propped up to begin with. It was designed and built around a use case which once that environment changed, everything fell apart.
You mean once we weren't going full tilt?
Right.
Yeah.
Because it was all based on moving with an extremely wide bandwidth.
Sure.
And as soon as bandwidth, you got bottlenecks in different places, and demands changed radically, and were no longer predictive.
Yeah.
Whole system fell apart.
Well, yeah. If you're sending out a ship that's designed to take 1,000 containers and you've got 200 containers on it, yeah, those containers got to be more expensive.
Yeah, and if you've got containers piling up in one place and there's no containers in another place, if you've got anyway, the supply chain was way more complex and based on only one system, one way of doing it. That system is gone.
Yep.
Now.
Well, it's gone for the moment. You think it'll never come back?
No, I don't think. I think $32,000 will never get low.
You don't think it'll ever get lower? Well,
no.
but if imports from China become significantly more expensive, then we will stop importing them.
Exactly.
I mean, so then those costs will go down and things will go back up.
So what we'll end up seeing within the year is. Let's an example, a bicycle. You got a super inexpensive bicycle from China,
right,
versus a handmade specialized bicycle made in Northern California. May end up costing the same.
By Specialized is a brand of bicycle.
Exactly.
You know? Okay.
Exactly.
May end up costing the same, but they won't because there isn't the same value there. So, I mean, there's no point in importing a $4,000 Chinese factory-made bicycle because nobody's going to buy it.
Exactly.
Right. So,
exactly.
But China is still going to be making the $100 bicycle because their factories are still geared up to doing that.
Well, first of all, it wasn't a $100 bicycle. It was a $10 bicycle.
$10 bicycle, which cost $100 by the time it got here.
Yes, but still, by the time it gets here, because of the now extreme costs and realistic costs of shipping, it's no longer going to be the lowball, cheap, inexpensive solution. And if you're going to be spending that much money, which would you buy?
Well, yeah. By the time imported Chinese goods reach the cost of artisanally produced American-made goods, there will cease to be anybody importing anything from China. But that's never going to happen because the cost of it just won't. Those factories will no longer be producing those goods if those goods cost as much as they cost here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is what we see could happen in the next 1 to 3 years. That super low value, super low cost manufacturing in China the demand will drop off because it'll cost the same. Just like oil.
Uh-huh.
Why import the oil when oil gets that expensive and it's so that it's costs the same as pumping it in the United States? You're better off getting it from the United States.
Well, sure.
That's what happened with oil. That's what's going to happen with low value goods, and then the investment of those factories will go away. Those factories will be retooled.
But what will they be retooled to make?
That's a good question. We will find out, I assume.
China's domestic markets are growing as their middle class grows and people can afford to buy stuff there.
So maybe it'll mean a rethinking of all supply chains, and maybe we'll see an extreme explosive growth in manufacturing in the United States.
Oh, well, perhaps, but on the other hand, maybe they will just get the supply chain issues under control and get everything back to business as usual the way it was 2 years ago.
We shall see.
Yeah.
Yeah, so chances are really good that by the time this segment comes out, this will all be fixed. If not, ouch. So there's a serious problem with Thingiverse right now. I'll try to bump this segment so that it goes in much sooner. So if you download all pieces, so if you do download all on Thingiverse, in the past, the way it's supposed to work is it brings up a dialogue. This is relatively new for Thingiverse too, by the way. They added this. It puts up an ad and makes you read the ad for like 5 seconds before it downloads.
Nice.
Well, what's happening now is right after that ad is shown, the 5 seconds later, you get a 404 page.
Oh, nice.
Which means there's nothing there.
Right.
So there's
reached the end of the Thingiverse.
Yeah, so there's a bug. There's obviously a bug in their download dialogue. And because...
But you then have to go back and try it again, and it serves you another ad, right?
It serves you another ad, and you get another 404 page.
Exactly. But you keep doing that a dozen times in frustration, and now you've read a dozen ads.
Yeah, but
that sounds like a feature to me.
Yeah, right. So, but if you download just the individual files one at a time, it's fine.
Yeah, that's how I've always done it.
Yeah, so keep that in mind if you're getting the 404 page, and just get the single item. Don't download all files. But this kind of illustrates the problem that this community has with Stratasys and MakerBot. They no longer have a Google group for Thingiverse. That's gone fallow. There's no administrator that we know of. There seems to be nobody at MakerBot Stratasys.
There doesn't seem to be much developer time going into it if bugs like this stay identified but not addressed for long periods of time.
Yeah, and this is endemic to 3D printing in general. We see this with Simplify 3D as well, where things just go fallow because the companies involved do not have any financial interest. There's nothing to be gained by making the investment and fixing it.
Yep.
They don't make enough money to care about it.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
or they've basically given up on the product or whatever it is. So.
And eventually we may need to move our focus away from Thingiverse and move it towards other 3D printing community repositories.
There are other repositories that are up and coming, and Thingiverse is still the biggest, but
unfortunately,
But if you look through, the fire hose of new uploads to it, I find that kind of pointless. I go through and actually look at the most liked things for the last 7 days when I'm looking for to see what's new on Thingiverse. Let somebody else do the filtering, because it's so much of the stuff up there. Probably 98% of the stuff up there is just utter crap.
Yeah, the other repository like My Mini Factory, it's well managed, well administered, purely curated.
Yeah.
However, spending some time over there this past week, now it's getting dominated by for sale pieces for like gaming that you do for you print with SLA.
Yeah.
And whereas Thingiverse, its most liked and downloaded things are usually household, and that's really what I prefer. I like the household stuff, the useful stuff. Like, for example, this past week when we recorded, we did the thing of the week was that nut holder that you put on your fingertip. It's things of high value for use, usefulness stuff that I tend to like. And I think the data shows that most of us tend to like, because that's the most downloaded category on Thingiverse is the household stuff.
I guess and there is a lot of tabletop gaming stuff on Thingiverse as well, and I really admire the artistry of it.
Yeah, me too.
Even though it's not something that I have any interest in printing or playing with.
I like to 3D print parts like that just to exercise the SLA machine that I've gotten to admire, to come up with a print that's just so beautiful. It's
incredibly
detailed, tiny and incredibly detailed.
Yep.
But again, that's just not something that is high value. It's pretty. I print one, but to print 40 of them to, like, for example, put up my Christmas lights, probably not.
Yeah.
So, we will probably be shifting eventually away from Thingiverse as long as MakerBot continues to neglect it.
Yeah.
It's likely we're going to have to do that.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't have the news article, but I remember seeing a news article out there on either 3D Printing Industry or 3dprint.com about Race 3D's latest printer endeavors, and it's pretty obvious they want the industrial market. They want in on metal 3D print, so it looks like they've got a full-up system that's just like the desktop metal in the Mark Forged, and it's looking like they've got this massive FDM machine that they're about to produce. So it's
and then some kind of a debinding furnace or something.
Yeah. So they look like actually they're moving out of the market they originally started in, and you made the comment earlier that that's the more profitable market.
Yeah, I would think.
And I feel that market actually has a lot more competition. And you said no.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at the amount of competition there is in the desktop hobby 3D printing world.
Okay, let's do that. So sitting next to me right here is my Ender 3.
Right.
And the Ender 3, I think we can confidently say, has stomped the desktop hobby market.
Well, sure, but how many different companies are manufacturing them?
Yes, but that's not the market I'm talking about. The market I'm talking about is those who want to buy a larger format Core XY, possibly tool changer.
Right.
There is no machine out there that you can buy ready to print.
There is no, but there will never be a hobbyist tool changer. I mean, other than the E3D one, which was a marvelous thing.
Well, let's but before we go further, we got to stop and say we're not going to discuss full kit.
You're right.
Only some assembly required or ready to print.
Right.
Now, in that market, which contains all of education.
Yep.
And almost all professional engineering and design, which was these are huge markets. These are markets that are not, I can't spend more than $300. No, these are markets that have budgets.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at that market. There is currently nothing in that market that is ready to print or some assembly required for a large format quality Core XY machine with the potential for tool changer. Mm-hmm. There's nothing.
You're saying with the potential. So you're saying a tool changer could be added.
Yes,
as a aftermarket. No, I don't think anybody's
not as an aftermarket, as an
accessory.
An accessory that you say, add that before you send it to me.
Okay, gotcha.
Put the tool chain, the tools in
as
there.
an option.
Yeah, they're not. There is none. The market it's empty, zero,
sure,
nobody.
Right. But when you look at the complexity of a tool changer, that's not surprising because a tool changer works great in a kit because when you put the kit together, then you're in charge of making it work.
Yes.
If you're looking for a turnkey solution, it's too complicated. There's too many things, too many support issues that are going to happen with that.
You really think so?
I think at this point it is. Yeah.
Well, you know who doesn't think so? Mm-hmm. Joseph Prusa. He doesn't think so.
So he's selling a tool changer machine, or is it announced one?
It was announced. I thought I sent you the announcement.
I don't remember.
You read my emails? So the Prusa XL was announced.
Right.
And the Prusa XL is
that's the Core XY one.
Core XY.
I didn't realize they had a tool changer option.
360 by 360 XY. I think Z is even larger. Mm-hmm. It has the facilities for 5 tools, tool changer. It has a heated build plate made of smaller heater build plates. and they boast about being able to be selective on which of the sections you may want to use. You don't have to heat up the whole build plate. Which
that's easy enough to engineer. Keeping it flat is more of a challenge.
Yeah, which may or may not be great.
Yep.
In their marketing stuff on their website, which I highly recommend everybody go look at. They talk about the gaps between these smaller plates, so it overcomes the issues of expansion and contraction and bulge. Well, that remains to be seen.
Yep.
They still use the flexible the powder coated.
It's PEI
coated metal spring steel, which was brilliant on the Mark III. That's a great bed.
And magnetically attached.
I think so. I don't see why they wouldn't do that.
Yep.
And let's see, it has 2 lead screws on the sides versus my preference, which is 3 lead screws, such as the rail core, as an example.
Yeah, 3 makes much more sense to me.
Or the Hevort, or the Rat Rig, I think, also uses 3. I'm not sure. But that's my preference. And there's a whole bunch of innovations that they talk about. And of course, as a systems guy, I think right away, there's a lot of currently not available technology. It's all new technology from a company that's kind of, they're mature from a 3D printing standpoint, but they're immature from a complex systems production standpoint.
Right.
Such as, say, Lenovo or Apple or HP, where they understand.
They're smart enough not to try and build 3D printers, though.
Well, they understand that you don't let the consumer fix your mistakes.
Right.
And unfortunately, that was not the case for the Mark II, the Mark 2.5, the Mark III.
But it's the open source world,
Yes, yes. But Joseph obviously is confident enough that of the potential for this market to jump in full tilt. Now, fully
and
loaded,
stake his reputation on it not sucking too badly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be problems, obviously. There always are.
Yeah.
But.
Now, it's big. It's a huge machine.
Yep.
It has an accordion kind of a thing that lifts up to seal it so that you can enclose it if you need to.
Yeah.
I doubt anybody's going to use that. And what else? Direct drive. They're not Bowdens. And it's a new kind of direct drive with a huge gear with the filament going along the huge gear and 2 bearings pressing against the top and the bottom of the gear, holding the filament. They say this thing will never slip or jam, and sensors everywhere to detect slipping and jamming and run out. So
until the sensors go bad.
well, you don't be so negative. I could be negative for the both of us.
I just drove over to your place this morning in a Tesla where the sensors are constantly having problems. I mean,
really?
Yeah. They're always like, yeah, this camera is blocked or non-functioning, and then 2 minutes later it's working again. So it's a software issue. Probably.
At least it fixes itself. I mean,
right.
At least. Well, hopefully it doesn't happen at the wrong time.
Right. Anyway,
so this whole thing, this new system that they've announced with the 5 tools and all that you get with the 5 tools, which includes additional boards as well as the tools themselves, $3,500. And I think that's if you do some assembly.
Yeah.
If you buy it fully assembled, it's $500 more. So $4,000 with my cabinet and add-ons that I put onto the tool changer. That's what I paid for the E3D kit that I had to build.
Yeah.
Now, the good news for the E3D kit is that it's not like building a Hevort. The complex parts are built for you, and you just basically put the casing and the lucite panels together.
Yeah.
But you do have to wire it, but you do get wiring harnesses. That's an important point. In any kit, in my opinion, the hardest part of any kit are the wiring harnesses.
It's crimping DuPont pins.
You don't want to crimp DuPont pins. It's a nightmare.
It is.
If I build another kit, if it doesn't have a wiring harness, I'll think twice about building that kit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
takes practice.
The Prusa XL looks like it could satisfy this hungry available market. Let's see if it does it. By the way, I should point out one more thing. Joseph says right at the very beginning of the description of the XL that the goal is for print quality, not speed.
Yeah, well, when you're doing massive direct drive extruders, that's kind of a given.
Yeah, so you got this large mass that makes the E3D look small, right? Mass on the carriage, mass on the tool, right? It's fairly significant. And then you look at the x-axis on this part, and everybody go to this website and look at this machine. You look at the x-axis and you know what you see? You see a bare, naked, linear rail. No support at all. Now, these linear rails, they're pretty hardened steel. I mean, these are not soft steel. But the E3D tool changer originally came with a carbon fiber support bar that linear rail was attached to. And the beta testers reported, I recall, and if I'm wrong out there, please correct me. But as I recall, the beta testers reported they were getting rotational sag from the mass of the tool changer.
Yeah, linear rails are not designed to be used unsupported.
Right. So E3D changed their design to a machined aluminum support for that rail.
Yeah, or at least bolt it down to a piece of extrusion that has some more torsional rigidity to it.
Prusa's not doing that.
Yep.
It's just a naked rail that goes all the way across the 360 millimeter expanse. My 2 machines outside, they're 300 millimeters. One is not a tool changer, and it works fine without any support. The other's the tool changer, and it needs that aluminum bracing.
Yeah.
So my prediction is that if they don't fix this by the time they actually produce this printer, which is likely about a year from our recording this, which is right before Christmas, we probably won't see this printer until a year from now or longer. If they don't fix that by then, I would stay away from this machine.
Well, I don't know. It looks like a pretty beefy rail. It's hard to know exactly what the specs are on it, but it's hardened ground steel compared to, it is
it's sagged on the E3D machine, same size rail. Exact same size rail, and the E3D is shorter.
Same size. Okay, because this is a pretty big, a pretty large cross section rail, but I don't know. I hope they figure that one out.
Well, I hope they do too, because we are in line. I slapped down $200 to get in line early, and if this machine is what they say it is, this will be an extremely important machine in the marketplace.
Yeah, it'll be the new one to beat if it works half as well as they say it.
Yeah. Oh boy, Whitney, another show written to the hard drive, waiting for encoding, uploading, and commitment on our feed to all of our very supportive listeners. Thank you all out there for your support on patreon.com. Thank you for your positive reviews. We do appreciate those. And hey, thanks for listening. We do it for you. We do it for fun. We just like to sit around and talk back and forth about 3D printing and other
3D
things.
printing.
And other things, yeah. So we do have a thing of the week that we liked to talk about that we're going to share with you. This one is the hot glue gun station. And who does that come to us by? It's on Thingiverse. And the Thingiverse user's handle is hcampho.
Who's otherwise known as Hans Camphau from Germany.
And let's see, it's called the hot glue gun station. And it's a relatively easy to print functional thing. And there's lots of little components to it. But to me, what seems the most useful, obviously, is the little fork that will hold your gun-like shaped hot glue gun in a safe manner and let the drool fall into a little safe area.
Drool catcher.
Yeah. The only thing about this thing which I would be concerned about is that the place where the hot tip sits, if you let it sit against the plastic, you're gonna have a rather unfortunate situation.
Right, have a bit of a mess there. But it looks like it's designed so that if the gun is put in there properly, it won't land there.
And you can also put something in that little space that even if it did touch it, it wouldn't damage it. I've got ceramic tape I could put in there. There's felt. There's all sorts of heat resistant materials you could put in there. So if you're a serious hot glue gun user and you need something like this, that's something I would do. On the other hand, if you're an occasional hot glue gun user like I am, this is fine. And, you can hang this on the wall, and there's other accoutrements that come with it that make it kind of nice. This is a really cool setup. I thought it was really nice.
I when I use a hot glue gun, I usually lay it on the tabletop on its side.
Yeah.
But I've got a steel table that will handle anything. So
if you're interested in this is thing number 5180235 on Thingiverse.com. If you've got a tip, a question, or a candidate thing of the week, what are you waiting for? Send us an email.
Send it to info@3dprintingtoday.com. That's THREE, followed by the letter D, then printingtoday.com.
And I also invite you yet again to our free forum on Google Groups. Just go to Google, type in 3D printing tips and tricks. And when you get there, if you want to post, you have to hit that join button. And let's see, it's a pretty big community. It's growing. It's starting to get larger than the older communities that are gone. So if you're interested, join. It is well curated, and there aren't some crazy angry kids yelling back and forth at each other like other forums. Okay, we do have a show next week.
We do. Show number 420, we start out talking about pellet extruders.
And then we get into the Predator extrusion replacements.
And then we contemplate good practice for sizing tolerances.
It sounds like fun. Hey, it's 420.
It's show number 4. Oh, dude, it's show number 420 coming to you live from NorCal.
What were we talking about?
I can't remember, man.
Anyway, thanks for listening, everyone.